Alright, how's it going? I've recently become the new owner of a Pajak sleeping bag. This is a European sleeping bag from Poland. It uses 900 fill duck down fill, and it's called the Radical. So this is the winter bag here. This is a 7.5 foot long sleeping bag that weighs 1/4 pound less than 2 pounds. So it's 1 3/4 pounds or 28 ounces. Which is 4 ounces lighter than the Megalite from Western Mountaineering. The Megalite from Western Mountaineering is one of the best sleeping bags available in the United States, or from the United States. And this is 1/4 pound lighter than that. And it's an all-season bag that uses 900 fill duck down. I've got the summer version here and the winter version. So the summer version is the Radical 1Z, and the winter version is the Radical 4Z. This is a 20, and this is a 50. 50 bags are not that versatile. It's got to be hot out to use a 50 bag. So I think hindsight 2020, if I had been able to look at these two sleeping bags at the same time and choose which one I would get, I would probably get the Radical 4Z because just looking at it, it looks like a traditional sleeping bag. It's got the kind of loft that I would expect to see in a sleeping bag. The 50 bag is a 50 bag. So a lot of companies sell a 50 bag. This is one of the best 50 bags that you can get. So this is a hot weather bag for July or just hot temperatures when you don't need a lot when you go to sleep. That's what the Radical 1Z is all about. It's 1 pound, 2 ounces. So part of what makes these sleeping bags so light is that they use a Quantum Pertex shell. Quantum Pertex is a type of nylon that has a high tensile strength. It's ultra lightweight, like 7 denier, meaning it's very thin. And it was popular a while back. It used to be used by Go-Lite and maybe like companies like Gossamer Gear a while back, maybe 10 years ago or more. And it's an awesome material. What it does is it blocks the wind, but also it allows your body heat to pass into the down. So the down, is a great insulator where it locks the cold out and it locks the warmth in. But the warmth that it's locking into the sleeping bag is not a lot of warmth. The warmth comes from your body heat, and your body heat is basically just friction. So your body heat is just this, it's just friction. It's your heart is pumping, and it's pumping the blood through your heart, and that movement of blood creates friction, creates your warmth. Supposedly it's 98 degrees or 90, and the body heat is mostly in your chest. So for that small amount of heat, that small heat source, which is just your chest, for that heat to spread up and down the sleeping bag, that's kind of an issue. You want a good sleeping bag that's going to allow for channels of warmth, so that your foot box can get warm. The warmth in your foot box is coming from your chest, and there's only a little bit of heat coming from here, and it's got to travel down into the sleeping bag and fill up the foot box. So you want awesome materials for your sleeping bag in order to make that happen. This is Quantum Pertex, and it's so thin that it's going to allow your body heat to pass straight through this material and be gathered by the down. And that's kind of what the advantage of using it, right? It's very, very light. It's got a nice tensile strength. If for some reason you were in your sleeping bag and you fell down the side of a cliff and you landed on some bushes, the tree branches will rip this open, okay? So any type of ultra lightweight nylon that you're using for your parka, for your puffy, for your windbreaker, whatever, it's awesome while it's working. While it's working, it's blocking out the wind and it's functioning normal. But if this can tear. So if you were to, bushwhack and to slam into some trees, especially downhill with gravity, the trees are gonna grab this nylon and rip it open. And once it's ripped open, it's ruined. Also, sparks if you're smoking cigarettes or whatever, and you accidentally light it on fire with your lighter or whatever. Campfire, you slip too close to the campfire and it lights on fire or something like that. Tent poles. Say if you have a tent pole with a sharp tip and you shove it into your bag, that the tip of your tent pole will go the tent pole will go straight through this ultra lightweight material, etc. Tent stakes, tent poles, lighters, knives, forks, anything sharp and hard could go through this material. Okay, so it works awesome when it isn't damaged. It's not going to work as well once it gets damaged. So you want to be careful with it. And the main function of it is that your body heat travels up into the down right through the Quantum Pertex, allowing you to get warm. That's going to be true with both. They're also 7.5 feet long, okay? So I think in the United States, the Western Mountaineering Megalite is probably the best sleeping bag that we make here in the States. It's 6.5 feet long, okay? It's a lot shorter and it's a little bit heavier, Okay, it's also a 3-season bag. Pajak is saying that this is a all-season bag. It's 4-season. It's 4 ounces lighter and a foot longer. Okay, so there's a big advantage to using this gear over more or less other gear. As long as it's in good condition, it's functioning properly, there's an advantage to using this gear. All right, now part of how they make the weight so low is by using this down here. It says this is a 900 fill Q-in fill power. The Responsible Down Standard, RDS, aims to ensure that down and feathers come from animals that have not been subjected to any unnecessary harm. The standard also provides companies and consumers with a tool to know what is in their products and to make accurate claims. The product contains 100% RDS certified down. Okay, so it's carefully selected down. The ducks that they use to gather the down from the nest. They don't pluck the ducks. They let the ducks grow old. As the ducks grow old, the feathers that the ducks produce become more mature and better with a higher fill power as the duck gets older. So this down is collected from old ducks, and those ducks were treated well throughout their lifetime. And then when they get the down, they gather it from the nest. They don't rip it off of the bird, okay? And I guess they feed the bird, good food. They let the bird live someplace comfortable, etc. Okay? So another interesting fun fact about the Pajak Radical 4Z in comparison to the Radical 1Z is that it doesn't use quantum Pertex everywhere on the bag. It uses another type of material here on the hood, as well as here on the footbox, okay? And, all I can tell you about that is, yeah, of course, I'm not 100% sure what kind of nylon this is or why it was chosen or what's different about it from the quantum Pertex. I can tell you that most likely it has a little bit more durability. This section of your footbox is going to be touching the edge of your tent some of the time, and the condensation from your tent is going to get onto the footbox as well as onto your hood, because this is going to be touching. It's a 7.5 foot long bag, so the head and foot of the bag are going to be touching the ends of the tent sometimes, and they're going to get wet. So that's the concept here, is that this is just a better material that deals with moisture and durability a little bit better than the quantum Pertex. And there's only a little bit of it. There's just a small section of the sleeping bag here around the hood has it. A small panel on the footbox has it. Yeah, I guess just around the tip of the footbox. There's some tie-out points here. Perhaps this material is a little bit more durable and it deals with the tie-outs a little bit better. Okay, I'm gonna open up the bag and kind of show you what's in the hood here. Okay, right away it's got this clippy right here. This thing is kind of like leathery plastic. What I think is going on here is this allows you to hang it up to dry. So say you've got your clothesline, you can clip this to the clothesline and that's gonna hold, it's secure. The wind isn't gonna blow this apart and you can let this thing hang and dry out. It's kind of like a secure point. Okay, you can also open up the zipper to create ventilation. Okay, once you've got some ventilation coming out the side here, you can then clip this so that your hood stays secure around your head, and you've got a little bit of ventilation coming out the side. Inside here, you've got a pocket for your keys. Okay, you've got a little storage space here. It's about the size of a wallet. It's pretty big. All right, and there's a little patch here, and it says Pajak Polish Goose Down. Okay, it's right there. As far as a collar, on the Radical 4Z, you do have a slight collar with a little cinch cord right here. So you've got some options of how you want to cinch this up. That lends itself to being more of an all-season bag, a 4-season bag, because if you're cold and drafty in here, you've got options in here where you can cinch your collar around your neck, locking in that heat and causing the sleeping bag to be even warmer than it already is. You've got a very minimalistic draft collar here where heat can escape and the wind could get in through this zipper. They've got kind of like a little protector panel of down here blocking that out. And then inside the hood here, you can see what's going on. You've got this draw cord here. This isn't soft, it's not cushy. You've got this thing going right around your neck where you can pull this. Let's see. You can pull that and it kind of like, now you've got kind of like cordage around your neck, you know, just to be aware that that pulls the sleeping bag in, but it's not cushy. The other, you know, yeah, it looks really warm. I mean, it's a very lightweight sleeping bag that looks really capable, really warm. Awesome materials, well crafted. The one thing that I would say is it's a little complex. It's kind of a creative solution. And as your baffles become more creative and more interesting, and there's more going on with your sleeping bag, as the sleeping bag becomes less and less minimal, you have the opportunity to run into issues, okay? Let's say somehow you accidentally drop this sleeping bag into a river and it's soaking wet and the down is all wet. The more complex your baffles are, the harder it's gonna be to migrate the down back into the baffles once the down dries, okay? So the more down that's in your bag, the harder it's gonna be to get it all dried out. And then, with sleeping bags that have a minimal amount of down in it, like this Radical 1Z right here, it's gonna be tough to get all of these down plumes to spread out all the way across these baffles because there's such little down in here. The temperature rating is awesome because it's 900 fill power. So 900 fill is warmer than 700, 600, 800, okay? But you need fewer down plumes to get that warm. But because there's fewer down plumes, it's gonna be harder to migrate that little bit of down out into the baffles after it gets wet. So to restore the bag to good as new conditions after getting it wet, that's gonna be harder because you're using fewer plumes of down. So even with this one, say if you got a 3 or 4 pound all season bag, for Antarctica or something, and you bought it from Eddie Bauer, it's gonna have a lot more down in it. It weighs a lot more because it's got so much more down in it. Because it's got so much more down in it, it's gonna be easier to use. Let's say the guy's on a boat in Antarctica and his sleeping bag gets wet and he needs to somehow try to dry it out in his room and it's not that hot and it's raining outside and it's a really damp, cold conditions. If you've got 4 pounds of down there, it's gonna be easier to manage that down and get the down migrated back into the baffles and get the bag kind of warmed up and working it again. When you're using a minimal amount of down with much fewer plumes, okay, the whole entire sleeping bag is less than 2 pounds. With all kinds of bells and whistles, with different materials, with cinch cords and whatnot. So when this bag gets wet and you want it to perform like new again, and you want all that down to migrate back into the whole entire bag and to spread out, you're working with less down, and so it's gonna be that much harder, okay? So, minimalism and sub-ultra lightweight materials, they can be really awesome when they're working the way that they should. If they're not working the way that they should, like if the bag is ripped open and you try to put some tape on here or something, a heavier bag would have been easier to use. The lighter the bag, the less, you add comfort with weight. As your sleeping bag gets heavier, it gets more comfortable because ease of use, being able to use it in a pickle. Let's say you fall off a cliff and you rip your stuff open, or you fall into a river and your stuff is soaked. If your stuff was heavy, it would be easier to fix. If your stuff is light and minimal, it's gonna be more of a disaster. Your stuff is gonna get destroyed easier because it's lighter. It's more simple, it's more minimalistic, it's more technical. You've gotta be careful with it. You gotta keep an eye on it. I don't really recommend smoking. You might wanna forget about campfires altogether. These materials can get damaged easy from sparks, cigarettes, lighters, knives, forks, hot plates, hot pans, hot stoves, sharp objects, stakes, hiking poles, all that kind of stuff can damage this gear. So you want to be careful with it, okay? So yeah, I'm pretty stoked. I got the Radical 4Z, I got the Radical 1Z. Hindsight 2020, would I do it all again? Would I get both again? Maybe not. I might just get the Radical 4Z since this is a sleeping bag and this is a funny little blanket, The Radical 1Z is extremely minimal. It's only gonna work in conditions where maybe you could have just laid out with nothing, Maybe you could have just fallen asleep in your clothes, like with a couple beers. Then the Radical 1Z is there. I do go back on backpacking trips in Mammoth or Trinity, in Shasta in California during July when it's hot, and I usually do pretty badly. It's a difficult hike. I oftentimes throw up, or I suffer from exhaustion, or I have difficulty. And so this Radical 1Z here This is going to allow me to remove a lot of weight from my pack, and that's going to make it easier to bring a bear canister. This is removing anywhere from a half a pound to a pound of weight out of my pack. And that's just gonna make the pack lighter. It's gonna make the trip easier. It's gonna cause me to get tired less. I'm gonna have more energy. I'm gonna be able to complete my hike easier. So for me, this is gonna work. You know, during the month of July when I'm hiking in California, this is gonna work. More or less the rest of the time during the shoulder season, you know, if it's May in Yosemite, or if it's October in Tahoe, September in Tahoe, anything like that. Any type of shoulder season, any type of conditions where I think it might get cold at night. I'm going to Iceland this year in July. The Radical 4Z is obviously the best option. It's, you know, Iceland is in the Arctic, and they've recommended to me to bring all of my layers. So I'm going to bring both, you know, because I might be staying in a hostel a few times, but maybe it's cold. I'll bring the Radical 1Z into the hostel and sleep in a bed with this. But otherwise, if I'm sleeping out, I'll probably reach for the Radical 4Z. Unless it's really hot, like unless it's just unseasonably warm summer conditions. Then in situations like that, I'm ready. I've got the Radical 1Z. It could go either way. I'm gonna have the Dacia Duster, which is like the European version of the Subaru. So I'll have plenty of space in my car to put this stuff, and I'll use whatever I need to use, and that's it. So I'm pretty excited. This is good. Radical 4Z, I really like this one. First impression is very positive. Again, my other favorite sleeping bag is the Megalite from Western Mountaineering. The Megalite from Western Mountaineering is a foot shorter. This is 7.5 feet long. The Megalite is 6.5 feet long. The Megalite is 2 pounds. This one is less. This is 28 ounces or 1 3/4 pounds. So it's 4 ounces lighter than the Megalite and 1 foot longer and warmer. Okay, so there it is.